Good. Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ahmed Idries. As Time introduced me earlier, I'm a postdoctoral fellow at ISA Group, Information System and Software Engineering Group at ED, NTNU. Today, I'll be talking about adopting AI in public sector from affordances and constraints perspective. So basically, my main postdoctoral research is focusing on AI implementation within NTNU. So I'm still in the early stage of my research. But in this presentation, I'll be highlighting a bit about overview of the AI in public sector and what are the constraints, and I'll be presenting the conceptual framework that I'm supposed to use to investigate this phenomena. So the agendas for today will be the real-world problem, the Norwegian context of AI, and then a little bit focus on the Norwegian context of AI with a focus on the public sector, conceptual framing, and what's really drives AI adoption in public sector, and the expected practical implications for this research, and call to action, and possible future collaboration. So before we start, the public sector organizations face pressure to adopt AI, but efforts often stall due to misalignment between what AI affords and what the organization can realize. So given the structural and institutional constraints, my research will move forward in investigating how AI affordances are perceived, actualized, and sustained in a real-world public sector context. So if we move to the real-world problem, what's AI? What AI is all about? According to the Norwegian digitalization strategy or Norwegian national strategy for AI, the AI is a system that performs actions physically or digitally based on the interpretation and processing of structured and unstructured data with the intention of achieving a given goal. So some AI systems can also adapt by analyzing and taking into account how previous actions have affected the environment. And in 2019, the EU or the European Union defined the AI systems as a software system designed by humans that given a complex goal, act in the physical or digital dimension by perceiving their environment through data acquisition, interpreting the collected structured or unstructured data, reasoning on the knowledge or processing of the information derived from this data, and deciding the best actions to take to achieve the given goal. So, however, according to Margano in 2023, public sector organizations are implementing AI to improve service management and delivery. Our research suggests that AI has not yet had the expected disruptive impact in the public sector. Actually, this study was published in 2023, and they investigated different AI initiatives across the EU. So as a result, public sector organizations are increasingly experimenting with artificial intelligence, but yet the majority of initiatives or ventures fail to scale or sustain. Why? Because the organization constraints limit their ability to capitalize on what AI can offer or what AI offers. That's in a real world, my motivation as a real world problem. But if we look at the Norwegian context of AI, based on this current research by IKT Norge or NI Analyze, they published a report titled Nordisk Mesterskap i KI, or the Nordic Championship in AI. So if we look at these figures, we can see that Norway is still a bit behind in terms of implementing AI compared to the other nations like Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. But the good news in terms of public sector implementation, still we are not that fine. We are not that behind. We are positioned at the second. So Norway has received a relatively poorer ranking in public and AI product, which due to stricter requirement for quality over quantity. At the same time, Norway has received a relatively top ranking in AI mentions in legislative processes. So based on the benchmark on these slides, Norway scored worst overall in the Nordic countries in this year ranking. Norway does relatively well in the public sector, and it's right behind Finland in public sector AI. In research and development business, Norway is still far behind. And from the last year, there are some developments. So if we look at this slide, we can see how Norway is located or positioned among the other Nordic countries. But still, which is the main concern of my research in the public sector, we still need a little bit improvement. Based on this research published by Jon Croxy in 2024 and still in progress, it presents the expectations of the future of AI in Norway. So the expected an actual use of AI for main areas: decision support in case processing, automation of case processing, planning and provision of services, and some other administrative tasks. And the question was behind this figure, which shows the actual use in 2024 and in 2024 and what is expected for 2027. To what extent has your firm or business adopted artificial intelligence in tasks and services? And the answers were like in a scale 1 to 5, like a very small extent to small extent and to some extent to large extent and to a very large extent. And it shows like still there is low expectations for the usage of AI, the public sector. And in the below figure, we can see that the average compared to what level the people expect it to be. So like the figures are a bit old, but yeah. And what they expect to be in 3 years from now. So still we can see that the expectations are real high, but still the actual usage is a bit low. So that motivates for more understanding and more investigation for what AI and how the implementation could be investigated. Based on all this data and statistics motivated me to move forward in designing the conceptual framing and go for something called technology affordance and constraints, which motivate me more to study the AI. So the TACT framework, or the technology affordance and constraint theory, is like the one must take into account the dynamic interaction between individuals, organizations, and the technology they employ in order to comprehend the applications and outcomes of information systems. And this one of the conceptual papers about the TACT framework published by Mzarka and Marcos in 2012. So to move forward, we need to understand what do we mean by affordance and what do we mean by constraints. So affordance refers to an action potential that is to what an individual or organization with a particular purpose can do with a technology or information system. So like we need to understand what do we need to do with this system or technology. And the constraint refers to ways in which an individual or organization can be held back from accomplishing a particular goal when using a technology or system. And I do believe that a bit relevant to the AI adoption within the public sector, because we're dealing with some organizational traditions that need to understand why do we need to use the technology and some step back from that use. So in order to understand this, I'm going to explain a little bit about the affordance and constraint as the relational concept. So we have this figure. It shows us the user or actor, environment, technology, and the possible outcomes and actions. So basically, the user, an environment, or the user and technology are relationally linked. But what is afforded or constraint emerge from the relationship, not from the user or the environment alone. So the affordances are the opportunities for action made possible by the environment relative to the actor's capabilities. And the constraints are the limitation or restrictions that rise from the same interaction. So still it's a relational link between the user and the environment or the surrounding technology. So based on the study by Margano 2023, and also there is a case in 2022 by researchers from Agder and someone from NAV, we can see what are the affordances looks like in the public sector. The AI affordances. So we have the technological side, organizational, and environmental. So in case of the technological affordances, The AI can offer accurate and faster data analysis, creation of data-driven organization, and that, of course, the main goal behind using the AI. And the constraints are like difficulties in having high-quality interoperable data. When we come to the organizational aspect of affordance and constraints, for example, an example of organizational affordance could be the requalification of employees and augmenting the decision-making process. And one of the constraints in this side is like resistance to change or mistrust of AI from employees' side, and that's very common within the organization. Many papers talking about the mistrust of AI from the employees' side, and that's a challenge, I guess, to some extent. And then when we talk about the environmental, which is also a concern for the government entities, like enhancing the affordance could be enhancing the provision of data-driven services, ensuring adequate skills and technology advanced system. But a constraint could be a complexity and dynamism of the regulatory framework. And if we look at one of the previous slides, there like some mention about the regulation and regulatory constraints in Norway. That's what I went through till the moment in my research. But still in my research, I'm expecting the following practical implications. So I'm aiming to understand the constraints and affordance, which can help in finding a ways in actualizing the affordance related to AI in such context. In this context, I mean the public sector. And also, we aim to provide actionable managerial insights on how organizations may effectively integrate AI or generative AI, emphasizing the necessity to differentiate between the hype surrounding generative AI and strategic deployment. But I'm not limited to generative AI. I'm open to all of AI-related technologies. So the expectations of this research also we motivated by the desire to provide knowledge valuable to the organizational development, and also understanding what are the AI affordances in the public sector with a focus on the Norwegian context of AI. And that could lead into further theoretical work related to how affordances are actualized within the public sector organization with a focus on AI initiatives and the second order effect. And here I'm calling to actions. I'm currently seeking new case context and policy feedback. Feel free to reach out or suggest relevant network. And here are the references I've used for this presentation. And yeah, thanks a lot for listening. And I'd like to thank you and Croxty for providing the statistics and data. And thanks, Stanley, for organizing this talk. Now I'm ready to getting your questions and feedback. Thanks a lot.